Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I've had former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore on the show before, and delighted to have him on again. Governor Gilmore has a great background in politics, and also as a leader, a public servant for much of his life, and always enjoy having him on the program. And now he's looking seriously at making an announcement here very shortly for running for president of the United States. And and I'm looking forward to having a conversation about that and what he believes he brings that so many other candidates that are already out there don't bring, and that'll be interesting. One of the things I saw just recently was this release that your campaign has done, or your people have done, with your organization, growthpack.us, over what you're calling a Donald Trump blunder. I don't know if he sees it that way. But Donald Trump over the weekend saying that John McCain is not a hero. I prefer those who don't get caught, which is really almost comic book in sounding. It's almost like a little kid talking. I was shocked to hear that. And there's no one in any kind of position that's as influential as Trump who lacks a verbal filter like Trump. It's really kind of interesting to watch, both entertaining and frightening. Governor Gilmore, welcome to the program.
Good, thank you very much.
And you served you served as governor, I believe, back in the 90s. Is that correct? 90s through the early 2000s, or
right.
through 2000.
98 to 2002.
Yeah, and by the way, for those not familiar, Virginia is one of those states that do not allow people to serve successive terms as governor, which is why you ended up being a one-term governor.
Unfortunately, I think Virginia ought to follow the rest of the nation in the federal system and allow the governor to run for re-election, but they haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Has that always been the case in Virginia?
Yes, it's always been the case in Virginia since the very many years ago in Virginia history. It's not a good policy, but it still is a great experience to be governor of Virginia. And by the use of the word experience, I mean that it qualifies a person to run for higher office, which is one reason why I expect to get into the presidential campaign.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the McCain remark by Donald Trump. I even found that shocking. And I'll be honest with you. I've been a little bit sympathetic of Trump in some of his remarks because there's a lot of candor there, which a lot of politicians simply don't have, which is why I think he's resonated. But I think he's already jumped the shark with this comment.
I think that the candor in politics is a good thing. I've tried to do it myself. But at the same time, candor doesn't mean that everything you say is right. And in this particular instance, attacking John McCain by saying that he got shot down is merely an acknowledgement of the patriotism that the man had by serving his country, just as I served my country back in when I was an intelligence agent during the Cold War. Donald Trump has not served a day in uniform. He has enjoyed the benefits of the free market system here in the United States. It's been protected by people like John McCain and other people in uniform. And I think what he said was wrong. You know, he can be a voice of resentment, which is probably not that healthy. He can be a person who's very entertaining, which is what this country is so much about now. But at the end of the day, I believe the people of the United States are going to be looking for someone who's a grown-up with some experience, who actually understands what it is to be a former governor and who understands foreign policy issues in a way that, frankly, I do, that many of the other governors do not.
Yeah, I'll say this. No one will bring more understanding of foreign policy to this office on the GOP side than Governor Gilmore. In his resume, people ought to look at his biography. His story is fascinating. The governor is fluent in German, did serve in military intelligence, and he has a tenacity that, frankly, I think is something that people should consider when looking at a potential presidential candidate. This is a gentleman who wasn't accepted at the University of Virginia for law school, but was at the University of Richmond, but decided to turn up at University of Virginia Law School on the first day of school and saying, I'm going to school here. And guess what? By the end of the day, he was a student. That's a great story, Governor.
Yeah, both law schools are excellent, of course, UVA and the University of Richmond, but I had an affinity with UVA and wanted to be there, and fortunately I was able to fight my way in.
But and we need a fighter. We need someone with tenacity.
That if I do enter the race, it's because I'm confident in my own background and record as a lawyer, a prosecutor, an attorney general, a degree in foreign policy, overseas services, United States Army veteran, former chairman of the Board of Visitors of the Air Force Academy, former chairman of the National Commission on Homeland Security for the United States, extensive foreign travel, extensive study of these issues over a whole lifetime. And that's
more
something
importantly,
I think that the former governors do not have.
And more importantly, I think, sadly, because most Americans are pretty, I would say, self-interested and myopic, there's a passion on your part about domestic policy as well, with wanting a very strong free market environment, limited government, that type of thing. Talk a little bit about that, because you're well known for that as well.
Well, I think it brings us back, Kevin, to what a presidential candidate ought to be. And it really ought not to be all about the candidate and about the person. And we've done so much of that in America today. If I run for president, when I run for president, it's going to be to help the American people and to focus on issues in two primary ways. Number one, we have to build up the American economy again. It's not building up. I don't care what anybody says in the Obama administration. Too many people have been thrown out of work. Too many young people don't have careers. Too many people are working part-time that want to work full-time. We have too little labor participation. And as a result, the economy is weak. That then bleeds over into the other problem, which is that with a weak economy, you can't have a strong national security. And the second point I'm going to make is that I intend to build up the national security of this country if I become the president. We've got to get the sequester limits off the defense budget. We have to begin to send a political message across the world that the United States is back, that we're going to stand for our values, we're going to protect our allies, we're going to protect American people and American interests in the world today.
Yeah, well, and I think those are all important things, and a lot of Americans are thinking about. But I got to tell you, it's interesting. I've never seen so many candidates running at the same time on the GOP side in my entire life, and I've been watching politics really before I could even vote. So you're going back to the 1970s. And so, and there's a lot of quality guys. There's a lot of guys I'd be comfortable with in the White House, including you. What really differentiates yourself from the rest of the pack?
What differentiates me is this. I believe that there's a growing consensus in the country that the Republicans ought to run either a governor or a former governor, somebody who's actually been elected at a state level, who's actually run a government, who understands legislatures and budgets and what has to be done to get this economy moving again. The difference is that I have the foreign policy experience that the other governors simply don't have. The military background, the ability to have dealt with the foreign policy issues at the national level with Terrorism and Weapons of Mass Destruction Commission that I chaired for 5 years, the extensive foreign travel, the military experience. These are the things that separate me out from the others. I have both of those components, and nobody else does.
Mm-hmm. So kind of give us an overview, a little bit of an idea of what your strategy is going to look like running for this office.
Well, look, I can certainly tell you that the focus is on New Hampshire. That's the place where the people are voting, where the people of New England have a chance to have their voice heard. That's why I've been there 8 times this year already for multiple days. I've done over 70 events in New Hampshire. And I've gotten a chance to get to know the people up there. Now, we have a lot more to do. We're going to have people that want me to be the president rally to me and help finance me so that we can get our message out in New Hampshire and then beyond, perhaps to South Carolina. And, the Virginia is, of course, a good, strong base for me, I believe, here in my home state. You put these things together, but you know what, Kevin, that's all process. I'm not running just to raise the most money or to run in the most states. Well, my goal is to get the message out of what I want to do as president, with the direction in which I want to lead the country. The fact that I believe the other candidates are not defining a really good direction, and as you've pointed out in many cases, what they're saying is counterproductive. I think what we have to do is direct this country in a stronger economy and a stronger national security, and reawaken our proper role in the world, which Obama has diminished.
So, and I have only been able to look at this in a couple of sources, but I noticed in 2008 when you ran for president, you raised about $125,000 in the first quarter, which was enough to make you decide not to run any longer in 2008. There's going to be more candidates pursuing maybe fewer dollars in 2016. How does that look? And I know getting the message out is important, but money helps get that message out.
Sure. And, I certainly hope that your listeners will go to our Super PAC webpage, growthpac.us, And at the appropriate time, we will have a campaign webpage, and then they can financially support me in any level that they want to if they believe in me and what I want to do. It's not believing in me, it's believing in themselves, what we expect to do for the United States and the direction that we have to go in. I'm not worried right now in this field about raising the most money. The goal now is to get enough money to stay in the race and let the credentials, the experience, and the messaging of our platform and program carry on. And I think particularly in this field that there's a good opportunity to actually win the nomination and then win the presidency.
Interesting. And you say in this field, because this field seems to me stronger than the one in 2008 in which you ran in.
Well, there's a lot of different people in the field and a lot of different credentials and a lot of different qualifications, which means that a person who comes into the race, such as myself, who has had a long lifetime of public service and in a variety of different ways, an attorney general, a prosecutor, an Army veteran, a chairman of a National Commission on Homeland Security, the governor of the state of Virginia. You know, these are all credentials that I'll stack up against anybody else in the field. I don't care who it is. But that isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that I know what I want to do for the United States people. I know what needs to be done for the United States people, and I'm quite specific about what programs I would put in place.
All right, former Governor Jim Gilmore of Virginia strongly considering a run for the presidency. In fact, is running for president. He'll be making an announcement, I understand, in early August.
Yeah, or even sooner. We're on our way.
Sooner. He may have just done it on the Price of Business show.
Well, we have. Don't tell the FEC that I'm a candidate.
I know how it works. Papers. I'm just pulling your leg. But I tell you, you're a great candidate and a great American, and I wish you well.
Thank you very much for the work you do on your radio show with all your listeners.
You bet. When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here does show up over there at usdatareview.com, and you're listening to The Price of Business.